Hi, my name's Mike. Here's one artist, one album, and one song I've been thinking about a lot lately. To the indie heads who drift into the math rock circles of the world, this band needs zero introduction. They're rightfully legendary in most, if not every circle that's discussed this type of music throughout the 2010s. I've been listening to their 2020 album entitled Black a lot recently, and it's fantastic. Tricot are a rock band out of Kyoto that have been known for specializing in this brand of extremely sweet yet deceptively complex rock music, and they've been a regular favorite of mine for years. Part of the liberation that comes from doing this channel this way is being able to drive to and from work and decide to listen to a record that I know will continue to brand itself onto my brain's pleasure centers in every way one of my all-time favorites does, and Black fits this bill to a T. If you've ever heard Tricot's stuff before, you may have only fallen in and out of awareness of their material throughout the late 2010s and into the new decade. I'm here to tell you that they've not only gotten better, they've firmly assumed themselves as one of the best bands in the world right now. They've already released 3 albums this decade that have firmly landed among my favorites so far, but their current crowning jewel comes in the form of this simply titled powerhouse of a record. The sounds that the band had formed in the mid to late teens, with some absolutely lovely tracks like Pork Ginger and E, have now matured, and the results are downright marvelous. This band could match blows with Don Caballero and Sean in equal measure. The thing that so captivates me about Black is the furious ear for melody that comes from Motifor's insatiably catchy guitar riffs and IQ's famously tremendous vocal stylings that are soaring past the already tremendously high bar they've set for themselves. More than any album in Tricot's discography, this feels like the full realization of the already world-conquering potential that they've displayed as a band. Track 5 here, listed as Secret Honey from a fairly brutish Google Translate attempt, is in the running for one of my favorite tracks of this new decade. Hero Hero's bass lines on this thing are so infectious, they hit this sublime moodiness while providing this hypnotic flow that bounces perfectly in tune with the drum line. Track 7, Smooth Sailing, might be the best crash course in how far this group has come. A vintage Tricot attack, with its high energy sweetness in all, gives way to an unabashedly beautiful section ripe with some of the prettiest vocal harmonies I've heard in recent memory. I can't stress this enough. If any of this sounds appealing to you, go listen. You can't go wrong with pretty much anything in their discography. I get a sense that if me and you are anything alike, this will be one that keeps you hooked for a long, long time. It's been over 2 years since the release of Black, and throughout these last 2 years of the 2020s, every single time an album from this band comes up on my drives to and from work, I immediately have to stop what I'm doing, stop the like song shuffle, and go give this band the proper time that they deserve. They are a band of tremendous talent that have managed to put it all together in a super appealing, universally appreciable package. They're the type of band that only springs into action a handful of times during a generation, and they are so beyond worthy of your time. Can we stop for a sec and talk about how much this album seems oddly prophetic? Vince Staples is another one of those artists that, from the moment I found them and gave them my time, I found to have rarely, if ever, missed. Listening to Drake's most recent album, Honestly Nevermind, which I have my own thoughts about, I could only think one thing, which is that Vince did this better like 5 years ago. Alright, that's not entirely fair. Vince Staples finds himself more on the explosive side of house beats, rooted within a style of electronic music that feels more at home in the blaring clubs of the United Kingdom's major cities than the downbeat, moody blips of Drake's attempt. Yet, and especially with the very recent release of Beyoncé's latest upbeat dance smash, the time is right to give Big Fish Theory its flowers. Or perhaps even more flowers. Vince Staples has always been a critical darling, but it's time to recognize that his non-stop pursuit of creativity is seeping into the future in the way that all truly great artists eventually do. Vince's gift for storytelling and infectious vocal inflection are his hallmarks, but throughout this string of incredibly forward-thinking albums, his albums have all been marked by a cohesive, intelligently assembled, and unavoidably futuristic style on most, if not every track, that has served to make Vince Staples' discography one of the most expertly crafted in music. In my opinion, that really came into the light on Big Fish Theory. The paranoid party that this record is serves to delight and depress in equal measure. It's just a total tour de force of sonic theming. The production choices on songs like Party People and Crabs in a Bucket are superb, and Staples nails the unification of style that comes from all truly great music. There is no separation to feel here between the instrumental and the artist on top of it. They are one and the same. That symbiotic balance is only something that truly great artists can nail, and boy is it ever nailed here. Anecdotally, I feel that we're far from seeing the end of the house music influence on the hip-hop spectrum. If Big Fish Theory is the blueprint, it proves that these sounds, when done correctly, just work so absurdly well together. It's hard to imagine, however, that any records that apply these noisy, thumping, fast-moving bleeps and bloops will string together the strength in which Big Fish Theory flaunts on nearly every track. This is a record that could serve as a precursor to a sound that dominates the music landscape around it and becomes unavoidable, much in the way 808s and Heartbreak was over a decade ago. If you begin to hear these artists utilize this style of primal and satisfying club thumps, just know that the peak may already have been claimed years ago, with a big flag with a fishbowl on it planted on the summit. And that sample on Bag Bag is just one of my favorite things ever, too. I just have to play it here.
They found it. Depth close to 3,230 feet. A deep dive.
I had this video that I made shoddily and quickly that I've now deleted. It was an adaptation of a thing I wrote for fun about a year or so ago, and it was pretty bad. Writing for print is very different than writing for YouTube. I was really harsh in it and generally just a bit all over the place. However, the gist of it was that I was going over the bands of the Hella Mega Tour, these staple rock bands of the 2000s, and detailing how I feel that they had all, at one point or another, lost what made them great. Yes, the sounds of Father and All and Save Rock and Roll and Make Believe might get under my skin as examples of what happens when good bands go bad. But let's save our angst here. Whether or not you like any of those records, we can all agree on one fact. One fact about a band commonly linked with these three. That fact is that High Hopes is just really, really f***ing annoying. I just wanna put it out there. I know this song is an easy target, okay? I've not met a single person who genuinely likes High Hopes. I know that they're out there. I know that they're out there en masse, but I've never met one in real life. I know it's an easy target, especially among music critic type. 2, it's kind of old now. I know it's old news to be annoyed with High Hopes, but you've got to understand that it's still out there, and I just came across it again. I currently work in retail. It sucks, but it's got to pay the bills until I'm done with everything else going on in my life soon. I mention it because it's the exact arena that High Hopes was designed for, and it's also the one where I most recently heard it. Shopping aimlessly on a too hot summer day for stuff you don't even want because your mom dragged you out to go get some nice clothes made in some sweatshop overseas. It's almost too perfect of a representation. High Hopes isn't plastic, it's military-grade rubber. I had maybe one too many drinks one night, a few months ago, and I posted this little write-up of Panic at the Disco's second album, Pretty Odd, on my Twitter timeline. You can pause it to read it if you want, there's spelling and grammar mistakes and whatever, I didn't care, I don't care. What stuck out to me is that when Pretty Odd entered my brain, I was filled with a myriad of emotions for a specific time for this specific band. 1 or 2 songs off that album made me feel all these things I needed to say about this specific music. Follow me on Twitter, by the way, if you'd want to see more of this. There's always the chance I make a total ass out of myself, and you wouldn't want to miss that. High Hopes feels like music analysis antimatter. There's nothing to analyze except the context that surrounds it. It was written by a conference room-sized list of songwriters, and appropriately sounds like a mishmash of all their most commercial-friendly ideas stuffed into one song. The Fueled by Ramen era of emo dominance couldn't last forever. We know that. The stars were already bred and raised, yes, and they're not going anywhere. The choice of this crop obviously being Paramore, who managed to mature into a band that still seems like they truly give it. Their traversal into pop music was built upon very strong foundations of the genre as a vehicle for that nice balance between artistic expression and catchy universal appeal. Then there's Fall Out Boy, which I mean...
Unlock your full potential with the new Audi, Mercedes-Benz, Lexus, Jeep Grand Cherokee.
But perhaps they haven't even reached the overwhelming, monolithically all-encompassing blandness of High Hopes, a song that officially qualifies for that exclamation mark to be removed again. Whose fault is this? Who began the plastic surgery on this band, and who finished it? I don't know. There was a glimpse there. It's gone now, though. What I do know is that in the course of the last 20 years, this name was once attached to one of the most exciting bands in all of music. They kaleidoscopically bursted through a record of emo and baroque pop-tinged dance rock that has never truly gotten its due and is actually quite excellent. Subsequently embarked on a spiritual journey of some downright beautiful 60s worship, and ended up here. Taylor Swift brought Brendan Urie for this song, which basically is just in this style, and then ditched it near immediately. I'm at a loss. I don't know. I just don't know. I mean, I guess that hook on Viva Las Vengeance isn't awful. It's got backup vocals that sound like the in-house studio singers on any number of Dan Schneider-produced Nickelodeon sitcoms, though.
I once responded on a personal account to this writer I admire a few years ago. He asked one pretty simple question that has stuck with me to this day. Is there a song you really love from an artist you otherwise think is bad? Well, I know I'm not going to make any fans with this one, and I by no means think this band is bad apart from this song. Yet it sticks out to me in my mind as a track that maintains a massive gap apart from the rest of the songs I've ever heard from them. Man, this song is perfect. Okay, maybe not perfect, but it hit me in such a strong, unexpected way the first time I heard it that I knew I would have to try and summarize my thoughts on it in some cohesive way. The 1975 are a band that has never managed to grasp my attention for that long at one time. I was never a fan of their breakout hit Chocolate. I never managed to succumb to the wave of hype that surrounded them with every subsequent project. That included A Brief Inquiry into Online Relationships, an album that I perhaps unfairly dismissed when identifying with a viral tweet seen here that joked about their perceived depth of subject matter versus the actual depth. However, this track is a single from that record, and man, did the couple years in between its launch ever treat this one kindly. I'm not identifying with it because it's some prophetic OK Computer-esque picture of modern society. In fact, some of the attempts it makes to lyrically grasp at those kind of straws definitely arrive at my brain as, cringe. There's really no other way to put it. That being said, some of them I really do like. But oh my god, I mean, Maddie Healy here in the Vertical video is really portraying just how amazingly this song invokes a need to interact physically with the production on this. It's just one of the most impeccably produced pop songs I've ever heard. This section that smarter people than I might call a post-chorus is so infectious that I dare you to try and remove it from your memory for the next week. It's so furiously creative. There's this intense level of effort that pours out of it that manages to somehow sound so fresh while managing to stay comfortable. It's like this little 4-minute sonic cleanse that just washes out anything toxic from your system and just replaces it with this fleeting but so awe-inspiring chunk of nirvana. The production is so phenomenal. It rings not too dissimilarly in my mind to the stylings of fellow, eternally trend-setting Brits Everything. This stop-start brand of bombastic grandiosity was their bread and butter on albums like Get to Heaven, and I dare to say this track even meets the stakes from their heights. There's a certain magic that all of the elements of this track combine to produce that just shoot it up to such a stratospheric degree that I fear it could never be matched again by this group of clearly talented musicians. Man, what is it with me in this band? I've heard stuff from their most recent, also critically acclaimed newest record, and nothing does it for me like this. I don't know if I've ever heard something that does it for me like this. Please, I'm genuinely asking, someone let me know. Please let me know why I can't hear anything from this band that fulfills my internal feelings like this, and which doctor do I go to rectify this? 2023 is the 10-year anniversary of hearing so many albums that would shape my future. It's the 10-year anniversary of the first time I heard No Love Deep Web, along with the rest of the Death Grips catalog. This one is the one, though. It's the one that I'll forever associate with anniversary dates, formational moments, and personality development. It's my favorite Death Grips record, and the one I still feel to this day synthesizes the magic of this group down to their most concentrated form. This shit is pure, ultra-powerful Death Grips. Even if they'd find themselves branching into more aggressive and noisy territory, this is where, in my mind, the group would find themselves at cosmic singularity. Minimalist is the word thrown around by those comparing it to the rest of their discography. Their catalog at times ferociously loud and overbearing in the best way. No Love Deep Web does achieve a more direct implementation of catharsis notable from a Death Grips record. It's true that some of this may lie in this truly being their last album firmly rooted in the stylings of hip-hop music. In my mind, this is the absolute peak of the Death Grips that arose rapidly to independent stardom. This is the final form of the group that everyone and their brother were fawning over. Since then, Death Grips have seemed uncomfortable with this characterization. They were uncomfortable about it at the time. So uncomfortable, in fact, that they'd go to the lengths of canceling tours with Nine Inch Nails and abandoning live shows altogether with a somewhat clairvoyant sense of their pigeonholing. This resulted in their infamous short-lived death and rebirth into the group that would provide that distorted noise on GP and Black Paint. But however, you can't deny there was something magical about their output during their time as hip-hop wunderkinds. Nowhere is it more magical than No Love Deep Web, with both halves' title tracks embodying this powerful, primal form of rage-filled yet intellectual music. It's so obviously evident what swept everybody up in the hype upon even one listen. The aggressively paranoid nature of this album rings through every single second of it. The production, lyrics, sudden spikes of piercing loud sound, and even the history of the band recording it at the time all comprise one of the most mystifying pictures of a band during stardom that's ever existed. You can't begin to deny the impact records like this can have upon a young person stumbling across them. It's the textbook case study on just how much one person's horizons can be widened. Death Grips represented the challenging of ideals in the artistic realm. This challenge presented on No Love Deep Web was one of not only the artist but the listener. The artist, presented with the ever-imposing challenge of your art changing the world to a degree magnified beyond the scope of an average release, I guess, they get faced with millions of tiny decisions that add up to huge movements of influence that nobody but yourself can answer. Do you remain with the comfort you've amassed? Do you radically challenge those that came to swear by you? How do you answer this ravenous group of people begging for more? Do you even care about this process? Death Grips answered with one statement. Allow me to get a bit meta here. My buddy Luke has written a ton of fantastic reviews. I'll frequently share snippets of new ideas for stuff with him and vice versa. He did this wonderful review recently of Sonic Frontiers that showcases his talent and ability to hook you into a piece of written media regarding a piece of art. Seriously, he's great at this stuff. Give him a follow. The reason I bring up his reviews, however, is for this one-line, 5-star review of the game Undertale. It simply reads this.
Remember when the internet tried to convince itself this game was bad, actually? LMAO.
And god damn it, is it ever true. It's one of the truest sentences ever written. Undertale is a marvelous achievement. It's this wholly unique and personal experience that melds together everything I feel make a video game great. It's overflowing with memorable dialogue, thoroughly written but not overwrought characters, emotional moments that tear at the soul, one of the finest soundtracks to any game ever, and gameplay that rewards you for thinking both outside and very much inside the box, depending on what you, as a consumer of the medium, value from your gameplay experience. In the very method it delivers itself to you, it can radically change the way that you view your interaction with a piece of art. That's what sticks out to me about Undertale. That's its modus operandi in my eyes. The challenging of your preconceived notion about interactions with art that can feel far too easy to just swallow and regurgitate. And swallow and regurgitate it the internet did. I still see conversations like this regularly about Undertale. Its status as an indie darling that catapulted its way into mainstream consciousness was bound to create discourse. The type of discourse I want to engage with here is one that I view of bad faith. It's pervasive around any criticism of any kind from anybody, be they regular internet user or critic. That is the sense of extenuating circumstances interfering with the ability to enjoy art. You're fully allowed to not like Undertale or any piece of art or anything for any reason. It's a God-given, inalienable right that you have that keeps individuals critical and keeps discussion alive. I feel like I shouldn't have to specify this, but I feel my argument may be easily diluted by the way I attempt to frame it, so I want to preface it with that. I feel that extenuating circumstances such as level of popularity, level of acclaim or distaste in the public opinion, or any other sociological factor that arises from a piece of art's inevitable and immediate impact on the world around it are, personally, poor reasons to like or dislike something. It's something that I attempt to avoid while writing. Yet, here's the important part. You're entitled to feel differently. In a way, I view this gatekeeping as somewhat necessary, unfortunately. I kinda loathe that it is, but it's this inherent subconscious desire within all of us as enthusiasts to ward off pale imitations of cherished art. How are we going to know that Emo Girl by MGK sucks if we don't have anything to compare it to? Drawing a line, even if faint, that boxes some people out. Well, I don't know. What I can tell you, however, is that it's easy to feel like this.
There is room for improvement, yes, but I think a lot of the hype behind this LP genuinely is real. Feeling the light using 7 on this one. Transition.
Oh my god, Fantana, what an idiot. That Yachty album changed my life. It deserved at least a 7.5.
It's too easy to feel like this. The ultimate point I'm trying to make here is one of individualism. Those voices, either from established critics with thousands upon thousands of hours laboriously researching and educating themselves on any given medium of art, or from a Twitter user you happen to stumble across, should be taken as just that, an individual voice. The role of criticism, in my eyes, is to begin a discussion. I've written long pieces about bands and artists where I attempt to eviscerate the work they've done. Not because I'm attempting to for the sake of it, but because the work itself invokes such a strong negative reaction that I feel the need to begin a discussion on it. I worry about even writing anything to that degree, because I worry I'm only going to contribute to this cycle of criticism, knee-jerk reaction, dismissal, and removal. My inherently parasocial relationship with their artwork is explicitly one-sided, no matter how blurry that line may seem in the era of social media. Just let yourself be a hater, I think. It's not like I'm saying what I'm saying out of an attack on personal character or anything. but allow me to attempt to present an alternative framing using an anecdote. One of the coolest shows I've ever seen live was this show headlined by stupidly talented and hopefully not now forever defunct band Scone, a captivating and mystifying group whose fierce technicality was only ever matched by their melodies as sticky as molasses. The openers were Little Tybee, Covet, and Terramellos. However, one fact about my night at that show sticks out to me even more than the great music that I witnessed. There was this one dude in the crowd close to me, and he just wouldn't stop talking about how much Scone sucked. I mean, it wasn't like this total barrage of hatred, but it definitely expressed some obvious distaste for this current moment of jazzy, math-adjacent rock that was currently centering at the venue we were both at. He made it abundantly clear, loudly, to the people next to him that he was only here for Terramellos. And I found myself in that moment, and for too long afterwards, caught in the cycle again. One dude got me so upset at that moment that I don't know, I assumed Terramellos had to suck, because what that dude said sucked. I was quite literally being that guy. I was wearing a Scone shirt to a Scone show, and here was this guy taking some pleasure in telling someone near me that my favorite band sucked. But here's the thing, Terramellos doesn't suck. They're actually really great. I seem to like the album that a lot of their fans aren't as keen on more than any of the other ones, but there's even further anecdotal proof of what I'm saying here. Those voices, in rapturous praise and sharp dismissal, will inherently never capture what you feel when you interface with art. It doesn't matter if it's some dude at a live show or some dude with a TV show. They'll never replace your voice. And if you sit idly and use the opinions of many as a substitute for your own opinion, you'll never get the experience that you crave or frankly deserve out of delving into art. Like what you like, hate what you hate, but give everything a shake. That's how you become a totally hip, cool dude like me, kids. And remember, winners don't do drugs. I didn't know how to end this video. I had no idea how to end this video. I'll leave it at that. P.S. Oh, by the way, to the dude at the Scone show, you are a cool dude until proven otherwise. I sincerely hope you don't mind me using you as part of a narrative device. And thank you for talking smack on Strawberry Girls, too. I checked them out a little later, and they're pretty good.
You guys are going to hate me for this score, but, you know, I'm feeling like a strong 5 on this thing. I can't see myself.
For the length of this channel, I've avoided doing a straight-up review of any album, but that might have to end here. Black Midi's Hellfire is one of the best records I've heard in over 10 years.
Truly, Radio Raheem. Next up, a song like no other. Listen to this.
In 3 years, this band has managed to put out 3 of the best, most miraculously original, forward-thinking, and engaging rock records I've ever heard. I simply just cannot stop listening to this one. The band has taken a generational leap forward here. Schlagenheim's Room to Grow has now fully bloomed, and the band's steps away from the angular riffs that pummeled and grooved in equal measure has led to this bountiful harvest of intensely composed, intelligently written, and downright fucking insane tunes that have only gotten more and more emotionally intense. Obviously, the band is still one of the most talented instrumental forces in rock music right now. There was little question of that after Cavalcade, but they've gained so much more. Eat Men Eat, The Race is About to Begin, and 27 Questions are these furious pieces of character study, weaving through multiple parts each in their depictions of characters, all feeling the titular hellfire beneath their feet at one point or another. For as noisy as this record can be, the picture is all too clear. There is no moment of ascending forth here where the group fully manages to hit the off switch for a while in service to some angelic force. The closest they get is on Still, a marvelous track that goes from steel guitars and clap-along beauty to a sound akin to disconnecting your cable from the space shuttle and simply floating. There are tons of comparisons to be made to other noisy rock bands that love playing angular riffs and strange time signatures, but the way in which they put all of these pieces together is something to behold. I could just go into every single individual song here and dissect all the ways in which their supernatural, generational grasp of rhythm's dramatic potential is matched only by their killer grasp on dynamic, or how the melodic wunderkind status they established on Cavalcade has morphed into this downright subversion of that notion, with the band dishing out punishing dissonance immediately after every time they get beautiful. Yet what I really want to talk about is the way in which they've put their own insanely unique spin on the maximalism paramount to prog rock music. Sure, the band has been compared to King Crimson from day one, but calling them a progressive rock band has never really been applicable. Their furious technique is only really able to be traced backwards to true rock music auteurs like Frank Zappa and Tim Smith, and the thing truly linking all of these three artists together in the compositional sense is their penchant for maximalism. Hellfire, even more than the statement piece of 953 or the outright insanity of a track like John 50, is a hurricane of high-speed complexity that sacrifices no measure of intricacy for intimacy. I truly do wish that many people who find themselves to be serious music buffs would retire this notion that music setting out with the deliberate aim of being somewhat hard to initially grasp and complex is inherently less than. Of course, there's true greatness to be found in constructing pop songs and finding new ways to captivate within traditional spaces of song composition that have been in place for decades and decades. But there's just as much greatness to be found in taking sticks of dynamite to 4/4 time signatures and laying claim to your own musical world. Hellfire is an album that deserves to be as revered as it is. It is not only, in my opinion, the finest work yet from a band that simply can't stop themselves from putting out genius work, but a record that would stand as groundbreaking, engaging, and endlessly fascinating if it were released 20 years in the past or the future. I beg of you, music listening populace, find it in your heart to give this maximalism a chance. Allow yourself to suspend your notions of what things should sound like and give yourself to the indulgences of artists. When a band with as clear of a vision, as much talent, and as much originality coursing through them as Black Midi decides to give in to their indulgences over the course of an entire album, the result is a monumental record like this. Knew this shit was gonna be great with that first single, man. I just fucking knew it. I was doing a lot of very meta thinking about this channel recently and the ways in which I wanted to go about it. Long story short, I was starting to have doubts about really pursuing it in the ways I feel I'm able to. Long story even shorter, I went into a little ramble monologue in my head that I just had to write down when I remembered this video.
What's your name? How are you? How's your life? Oh, you got a man. Are you in love? If so, a type.
No. Not that video. This video.
Oh, no! It's great to be here at your boyfriend's piano recital.
This is a parody video of Hobo Johnson's breakout single Peach Scone, which amassed tons of viral exposure as a submission to NPR's Tiny Desk contest in 2018, where indie artists were encouraged to film their own submissions for a shot at performing on the seminal internet show of the same name. The show is famous and notorious for taking huge artists and breakthrough indie stars alike and channeling their sound into the form that could typically fit a 15 to 30 minute live performance in their offices. The show's format is ingenious, and there's just an immense wealth of some of the most talented musicians on the planet, giving some of the most ridiculously intimate performances you could ever hope to see. Over 800 pretty great performances, with new ones recorded all the time and making waves. Chances are, if you've made it to Tiny Desk, there's a very significant amount of people who think that you're pretty great at what you do musically. Hobo Johnson and the Lovemakers didn't win the contest that year. That honor went to guitarist and vocalist Naya Izumi, a very talented guitar player who opened their performance by demonstrating some pretty fantastic control over their guitar with some tapping that me and the rest of the kids might call very mathy. Soulful and intricate, it's clear that Naya has a ton of talent in the bag and has definitely played guitar. So has Hobo Johnson, if we're led to be believed.
Oh yeah, my name's Hobo Johnson. I'm a rapper. I'm actually not a rapper. I like to say I'm a musician. I play guitar sometimes too, just not as good as Derek. It doesn't matter, but she is like the nicest person I've ever met in my whole life, and I'm sure you know.
Hobo Johnson eventually made it onto the show, not through the contest, but by sheer force of will, with the original Lovemaker submission currently sitting at just shy of 22 million views on YouTube. All my friends would eventually have pretty strong feelings on Hobo Johnson at one point or another. From what I remember, it generally trended pretty positive. Yet that begs the question as to why not one, but two parody songs of the viral smash also seem to draw so much favorability, especially when the content of those songs are not afraid to take some very heartfelt shots at the song itself, as well as the perceived content of Johnson's character.
My love for you is so hidden that you think I'm not here to have sex with you.
No house, Harrison. You're really clingy, but the sex great. Wait, we never had sex.
They're quick to imitate Johnson's vocal mannerisms, this squeaking whine that coats the beginning and end of every syllable he sings. Parodies are also very quick to attempt to cut through a perceived intent of Mr. Johnson, namely that he's not being very honest to himself or to the object of his affection as he could be.
But I can't stop smiling and being fake as fuck!
His affection for this woman driven solely through selfish urges that aren't as tortured as they truly seem, and his socially anxious explanation of himself as a musician seeming trite and far more calculated than he lets on.
I'm not a rapper. I'm a musician, okay? I've seen a guitar before.
I ultimately thought that when I would go back to truly sit down and write this, that I would have found myself firmly on either end of the Hobo Johnson fence. I thought I would either find myself truly engrossing myself in his gut-spilling shtick and reveling in the bare emotions of him as an artist, as I have for so many artists I've come to truly love, or I would find myself loathing it, embracing my role as an affirmed Hobo Johnson hater. Yet, I find myself in a much similar position now to where I was just over 4 years ago. 4 fucking years? Holy shit, that feels like 15. I don't like it, and I don't hate it. I see the inklings of where Johnson was going with it, and it gets very close to hitting me in places that I like very much. The ways in which Johnson's vocal delivery grate on so many others doesn't particularly on me. I've come to love several other artists with vocal deliveries that find themselves in this state of wailing. It's clear that there's the attempt to convey an emotion that is so strong that it bears no need for tonality or pitch. It's the root of a lot of my favorite vocal performances of all time. The pitch of his voice and the shakiness of the delivery could remind me on some days of a record like People Who Can Eat People by AJJ, and I love that freaking record, man. Obviously there's some more focus on actually hitting notes there. Johnson, whether he wants to admit it or not, is rapping on this track. People is also far more tuneful than Peach Scone, a track highlighted mainly by one very simple guitar riff, a drum pad, and a guy hitting a bass drum with a stick. That line in the chorus is genuinely great though, I'm not kidding, I love it.
I love the thought of being with you, or maybe it's the thought of not being so alone. I really love being loved, but also really love not crying on the phone, man.
It's a great line. It hits me right in the middle of my little emo heart. But juxtaposing it with the surrounding storyline is where it gets a bit dicey and maybe a bit, no house Harrison-y. The following verse after that first chorus with its dramatic drop and group vocals details a request to have some coffee with this girl of his affection. Perhaps, to its detriment or to its credit, in the most transparent way possible, Johnson details how he wouldn't be able to resist himself in pulling a stunt that would result in him declaring his love for this girl.
No, we should go get a cup of coffee, and I'll act friendly. And I won't pull any stunts, but I'm a freaking stunt puller from birth.
Before abruptly reining it back in comedically to a clearly paper-thin declaration of affection for the food they were eating.
Scones! I just want to tell you real quick, please. Shh. I love these scones. Just a diversity between the selection, the raspberry, the blueberry, the strawberry, pumpkin, even which
We've got to say it. We've just got to say it at this point. There's a certain type of guy that we're all thinking of when trying to look at these lyrics post-adolescence. It's the type of guy that your partner might be friends with, or that you're friends with, whose crush looks at their partner when inquired about them and goes, "Oh yeah, that's just Hobo Johnson. He's a really nice guy." I'm not here to trash nice guys, you know?
But I'm sure he's going to turn around at some point. And
I was the nice guy. I had a pretty big nice guy phase. We were all nice guys at one point in our life, regardless of who we were. And I won't hear that you weren't either. I see you over there, asking your crush for a hug once they were leaving to go hang out with their crush. I see you, okay? Don't try to hide from me. It's okay. You're safe now. You're among friends. You kids out there all call them beta males now, but when I was growing up, you know, a couple years before you did, we called them nice guys. As in, wow, all the girls just want to date assholes, not like me, I'm such a nice guy. It's a superficial mindset held by people that belie their entire truth, that they want to have a, usually sexual, relationship with someone, but continue to drone on and on about their own moral superiority and how it elevates them above someone else that did stupid, asshole-ish things like talking to them, being nice to them, getting to know them personally, and perhaps being a bit braggadocious about something on social media. The non-acknowledgement of that truth is what gets pretty actively parodied here, too. It's an interesting exercise to, as well as this, draw a parallel between the emotional truth of the nice guy and the credibility of an emotional indie musician. There's one pretty notorious line here.
I castrated myself to enter the DIY scene!
And I don't think I entirely agree with the categorization of Johnson as some phony that was putting on an act. Johnson would go on to release a couple records, with the best stuff still drawing heavily on a theme of unrelenting social anxiety and a terrified feeling of being thrust into the real world without having a real clue of what's going on. The stuff that Johnson would truly be loathed for before his recent hiatus to focus on himself and his career would be the stuff that attempted to take a grander look at the world as a whole from a more jaded perspective. What I've heard from it reads a lot like someone's first real musings on the injustices and cruelness of the history of the world. But the thing is, we all know that it's f***ed. It's not breaking news. People don't want to hear about that stuff. Or at least, they don't want to be told it from someone who just discovered it, you know? I relate to his current struggle a lot, personally. I've been there, realizing that so many things are bad for so many people, but then realizing you just gotta, put your pants on and go to work. It fucking sucks. Perhaps some of the gratification people felt from Peach, Scone, and other earlier works from Johnson came from that primordial desire to escape that feeling and focus on the ways in which our own personal and social lives make us feel an entire rush of emotion. A world's worth of catharsis, love, and frustration that one person in our life can bring. That's what I feel will ultimately vindicate Peach, Scone, and perhaps Johnson on the whole. Despite the perceived posturing, I do believe Hobo Johnson tackled everything with an intensely honest, personal view of the world. He certainly does it better when focusing on the more quote-unquote mundane aspects of life than horrible history stories, and those tracks will be cemented for a lot of people for a long time as having a special place in their heart. If you're gonna write a song that's coming from an honest real-life feeling, be as real to yourself as you can be. I think Hobo Johnson was that and is that throughout everything he's written. If you're struggling with social interaction, just remember there's people out there that love and care about you. There's a whole world of steps you can take and a whole lifetime of opportunity to be more comfortable with who you are. You're doing the best you can too. Don't you ever forget that. Oh, and if you identify with Peach, Scone or feel like girls just don't date nice guys, I don't know. Find a hobby. Don't take advice from guys who rent out Lambos for YouTube videos. You're far better off with a million Subaru Crosstreks before you take one of those.